My name is coverkillernation, and it doesn't look like I should be about to review a Darkthrone album. Okay, the shirt is fine, but the haircut. I look like a fucking balding beetle, like Paul McCartney and a hedge clipper just made love, in a very cruel kind of S&M kind of way. But yet, here we are. We're talking about Darkthrone, a band that they're not exactly conventional either, so maybe this is okay. Band that originally started as a death metal group became a black metal legend, and of course, as of recent, has embraced some crust-punk as well as some of that old school heavy metal candor within their sound in order to produce something that's a bit of a hybrid. And the Underground Resistance, their album from 2013, nearly got them the Album of the Year honor on this channel. So here we are in 2016 with Arctic Thunder. Is this something that is continuing? Has the Underground Resistance reached album number 2, or have we returned to some of the ideas of old? This is certainly one that's been cause for debate. It's certainly one where people have wondered, what's this band going to do next? So let's talk about it. 8-track affair. It's not a 6-track affair with 13-minute long songs such as the Underground Resistance was. No, within these 8 tracks, no track actually eclipses the 6-minute mark in length. So these tracks are noticeably, or at least right away, a little bit shorter in length. Now, we all have heard, hopefully by now, Tundra Leech, the first single off of this album, which also opens this disc, and it's one that showcases that some of those black metal lingerings are, well, still lingering. They're still there. They are present, kind of. It's just no longer the overall majority as to what makes Darkthrone who they are today. It's one that is sort of a side of their sound that is able to come out between tracks or within tracks, different portions of tracks, in order to give it an overall register of a little bit of difference. It does open up the variety a little bit, and Tundra Leech does have that. It's a more simplified idea, but whenever it comes to being an opening track on this album, the one thing that I will say is that it's a very potent opener. It's one that has a lot of charm to it and definitely gets you off on the right foot with your horns up and hoping that it's going to continue. You go into a track such as Burial Bliss, and it definitely does continue. This near 5-minute long track certainly showcases a couple of the other sides of this band's toolkit. Now, this is not one that's going to showcase the elder riffing on like a track such as the title track, Arctic Thunder, which the introduction of that song just feels like it's ripped from the 1980s and just goes into a track that really would make groups such as Motorhead proud at, in places, or at least feels like it would be right in tune with some of the occult metal that you got from the 1980s. But a track such as Burial Bliss is able to do smaller things in order to really captivate your attention. It's one that has a little bit of a nicer body to it. Now, that's also unlike a track such as the next one, Boral Fiends, which contains some softer, or should I say some slower melodies, not softer, that's for damn sure, some slower ideas that gives this a little bit more of a crawl. It also, at times, feels like there's a bit of empty space on this song, and this one is nearly 6 minutes in length. It's one of 2 tracks that are back-to-back that nearly touch that 6-minute mark, and there is some of that open space that really works somewhat against it. However, with Boral Fiends, what's interesting is that near the end of this song, we have a guitar solo that almost sounds like it's the, 1980s version of what Tom Morello does. There's a lot of that higher squeal to that guitar lick that you hear, and it's kind of interesting to hear that on a Darkthrone song. But the thing of it is that it works in the context of this composition, and it's one that gives it a little bit of a, different sort of punch to the face to the listener. It's one that really opens up some more variety. Now, Inbred Vermin is once again another track that goes close to the 6-minute range. However, with this one, you feel a little bit more distant from this composition, even though it sort of rips around you and gives you plenty to sort of bang your head about. It's one that, after the first 3 songs, just doesn't feel like it has as much strength behind it. It's almost like it's the first kind of dud song of the disc, which of course means that somebody's going to come in the comments and say, "You're fucking wrong, that's the best song on the album." Potato, potato, that's all I'm going to say. Suck it up, Buttercup, and deal with it. The title track we've already spoken about. Arctic Thunder really feels like 1980 called, or at least one of the years from that decade called from heavy metal, was planted at a little bit of 2016's charm as far as, minor production. Basically just making that sound a lot louder. This is a loud album, don't get me wrong. And it just sort of spirals it around the listener, and it's definitely one of the highlights of this disc, considering it does retain some of that elder charm and still maintains the real snarl that Darkthrone is able to deliver. Which, by the way, as far as the vocals are concerned, you're not hearing anything from Fenris. It's only one voice that you're hearing on this disc, and that decision may seem by some to be a little bit peculiar considering how diverse it made the underground resistance, but this sort of consistency definitely aids and sort of supports that, simpler approach that was really taken to this. Really, your next highlight on this disc is going to be within Deep Lake Trespass, which really just has sort of the similar charms that you heard with songs such as Burial Bliss, either that or Arctic Thunder, the title track. It's one that seems to follow that philosophy, but whenever you get into the Wyoming distance, this is one that feels like an opportunity that was kind of left behind. I think that what Darkthrone was going for here was a shorter track that has a lot of aggression and sort of passion attached to it as the finale, but it just comes off as sort of it almost feels, honestly, like the track listing of this is incorrect, and it's off. It feels like this is a middle of the album song that just happens to be the closing number of it. So yeah, this is definitely not one that's going to garner, I think, the high praises of the underground resistance to a lot of metal fans. To those that enjoyed the black metal scenario that Darkthrone was able to imprint during the 1990s, you're really not going to be too pleased with this. But if those that recognize that Darkthrone is a band that really just does what they want will understand that this is an album it's competent. It's one that's competent. It's kind of slightly above average. It has some nice moments on it, but overall, it's one that feels a little flat in some locations. The old school homages definitely are still ringing true as some of the true highlights, because it gives this, very unilateral at one point style of music, which was black metal, which they kind of no longer are. It gives it a little bit more of a sense of exploration and diversity and building, but at times it just feels like it's, I don't know, there's just not quite enough there in order to register it as a bona fide, Darkthrone classic album. The one thing that the Underground Resistance definitely had going for it was that each of the 6 tracks were very approachable, and each of the 6 tracks felt like you wanted to consume them as opposed to skip them. On this album, you don't quite have that same feeling, and it does hurt it in some regard. This is an 80 out of 100. A little bit of a disappointment, but still enough on here that really begs exploration and feels very kind of neat. Almost like Darkthrone continues to build and continues to try to add some new elements to their already sort of unique sound, the sound that makes them them. And you do have to respect that a little bit. I just think that there could be a little bit more that this album could have given us in order to really be a higher classic album on there. And I really, using the classic word is a little bit of a wrong turn of phrase. It's just one that feels like it could have had a little bit more to offer, but overall, not a bad disc. I know what you guys think about Arctic Thunder by Darkthrone, and solely that. I don't give a shit what you think about my haircut, you bunch of fucks. Maybe I am the lost Beatle. Maybe I'm the new clone that they're growing for Paul McCartney. And I'm not British. They're going to have a big old story about how he was never British, and how he was American the whole entire time, and what he actually did is that he traveled across the sea, and whatever. What did you think about Arctic Thunder? What do you think about Darkthrone? Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.